I met Bradley, who had been missing for 5 years, at my best friend's wedding. He was the groom, and I was the bridesmaid. My best friend Alva smiled and pulled me to share their love story. I was the one who saved him when he had a car accident. I heard he had a fiancée, but I transported him abroad for treatment overnight. How about it, sis? My move was pretty awesome, right? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Alva was still talking enthusiastically about something, but I couldn't hear a word clearly. My ears were filled with a harsh buzzing sound. 5 years. Nearly 2,000 days and nights. The person I loved the most had been hidden by my best friend for a whole 5 years. I bent over and gasped for breath, my body shaking uncontrollably. Alva noticed that I didn't look well and quickly helped me into the dressing room. She asked cautiously, "Christina, what's wrong with you? Is your depression flaring up again?" In these 5 years, in order to find Bradley, I had been to countless places, asked countless people, posted missing person notices, and even bought trending searches. Even his family had given up. But I was still persistently searching for him. In countless dark nights, I stood by the roadside numerous times, trying to end this life that was being consumed by despair. But now, it had all become a joke. Looking at the countless scars on my right hand that had been cut and then healed, my eyes burned, and my heart ached as if it were being torn apart. Alva sighed. "Are you thinking about your fiancé again? Stop looking for him. It's been so long. He might have died long ago. I'll organize a gathering someday and ask Bradley's good friend to introduce someone to you." As soon as she finished speaking, Bradley walked in. He was wearing a black suit, with a tall and straight figure, and he looked exactly the same as he did 5 years ago. Our eyes met. He just glanced at me indifferently and then stepped forward to adjust Alva's wedding dress. Behind him was the group of groomsmen, still his old friends, and I had met most of them before. When they saw me, there was hesitation in their eyes. If it had been just a moment ago, I could have comforted myself that he might have lost his memory and that's why he didn't remember me. But his friends were all telling me that he hadn't lost his memory and that he remembered everything. It was just that he didn't love me anymore. Alva quickly said, "Honey, tell your friends not to leave tonight. Let's have a good time." Then she winked at me. Bradley nodded casually and didn't spare me another glance. It was as if we had never known each other. I slowly closed my eyes. My heart seemed to be tightly gripped by someone and then resolutely dug out and thrown into the fire to burn. I had never felt so sad before. I desperately needed an outlet to relieve the madness in my heart at this moment. I stood up and rushed into the bathroom, hitting the wall hard. With a dull thud, my forehead was instantly stained red with blood. My body swayed, and my vision gradually became blurred. I barely leaned against the wall and slowly slid down, feeling a sharp pain in my heart. I hit the wall with the back of my head again and again. It seemed that only in this way could I have a moment of relief in my heart. It hurt so much, really so much. I curled up, and a dense pain welled up in my chest. Then I laughed softly. "Bradley, so you don't want me anymore." When I walked out of the bathroom, the wedding had already started. Alva understood that I wasn't in a good mood and temporarily found someone else to replace me. I stood at the farthest distance and watched Alva on the stage say, "I do." With a sweet smile, Bradley solemnly knelt down on one knee, took out the ring, and put it on her ring finger. A trace of jealousy suddenly rose in my heart. I wanted to rush up and stop them, to loudly ask Alva why she had stolen my fiancé. Why did she hide him? And why did she make me unable to find him for 5 years? I also wanted to ask Bradley why he pretended not to know me. Why didn't he come to me when he came back? And why did everyone hide it from me? I wanted to smash this wedding, but I didn't. I just sat in the corner and took the lead in clapping after they finished their vows. I clapped so loudly that people around me all turned to look. I didn't care. It was just that when Bradley looked towards me, I met his gaze. Our eyes met, and my nose twitched. The tears I had been holding back immediately fell. Bradley's eyebrows twitched slightly, and he indifferently looked away. There was no trace of emotion left in his dark and deep eyes. I clenched my palms tightly. I thought I was probably going crazy. I picked up my phone, edited a text message, and sent it to him. "Bradley, I don't want to wish you a happy wedding. I curse you. I curse that you will never get what you want in your life." The next second, I laughed at my own stupidity. The person he loved had already married him. My curse wouldn't have any effect. I left for home directly before the wedding ended. I was afraid that I couldn't help going crazy if I stayed any longer. 3 years ago, when Bradley's news was cut off again, I tried to commit suicide. Unfortunately, I didn't succeed and was sent to the hospital by my neighbor. When I woke up, Bradley's mother held my hand with tears in her eyes and asked me to live well and live for him. But the world without Bradley was too bitter. We met at the age of 6, fell in love in high school, and as soon as we graduated from university, we chose a good day to get the marriage certificate. But he had a car accident on the way there and disappeared without a trace. I went to the police station countless times and asked every stranger at the scene of his accident. Without exception, no one had seen him. Now he was back. But he didn't love me anymore. I fell asleep in a daze. When I woke up again and opened my phone, there were calls from Alva and words of comfort from Bradley's mother. And a striking reply. There was only one cold word. Scram. I smiled bitterly. It turned out that my self-righteous concern was just a joke in his eyes. I completely closed myself off and started suffering from insomnia all night long. My hair fell out in large handfuls. I didn't go out for 10 days. And I visibly lost weight rapidly. My already thin body now looked like nothing but bones. Until Alva came to my door because she couldn't get through to me. And Bradley was behind her. I hadn't washed or groomed myself for 10 days. And there was a faint smell on me. But Alva didn't care at all. She rushed up and hugged me, then dragged me towards the hospital. I knew what she was afraid of. I expressionlessly pulled my hand away and said politely and distantly, "I'm fine, thank you." I didn't know how to face Alva, whether to resent her or to wish her well. I thought I couldn't do either, so I instinctively wanted to stay away from her. She didn't care about my sudden sense of strangeness and just thought I was in a bad mood. Alva heaved a sigh of relief. "Can you answer the phone in the future? Is the phone just for decoration? Do you know how worried I was? Starting today, my husband and I will move in and live with you. We'll take care of you until you get better. There's no way to refuse. I reverse your refusal. Reverse. Reverse. Reverse." She had a serious expression and a firm tone. Her bright, cheerful, and warm personality made it hard not to like her. So, it was no wonder that Bradley had fallen in love with her. I looked at the figure standing behind her. His eyes were cold, and his dark and cold eyes narrowed slightly, as if he were looking at a stranger. Even though he was as cold as ice, even though he was miles away from me, I still longed for a trace of his warmth, even if it didn't belong to me, as long as I could see him, for one more day, one more minute, or even one more second. I didn't know if it was because I couldn't resist Alva's care or because of my own selfishness. I let them move in. This house used to be the wedding house that Bradley and I had planned to use for our marriage. After he disappeared, I decorated it according to his preferences. The furniture arrangement was all in his style. Alva's eyes widened. "Wow, Christina, your taste is really unique. Why is it all in the dark style? It's so gloomy and depressing. It's either black or gray. There's no color at all." "Because there was no light in my world anymore," I said softly. "Because my fiancé liked it. So I decorated it according to his preferences." Alva said disapprovingly, "You should have your own ideas too. Why do you always follow his wishes?" My husband listened to me when we decorated our house. It's really cozy. I make him sleep on a pink bedsheet every day. I lowered my eyes and vaguely remembered that when we first lived together, I also liked pink. The bedsheets, water cups, toothbrushes, and bowls were all pink. Even his underwear. I bought it in pink. But he never wore it once. The same was true for the bedsheets. He would rather sleep on the floor than on the bed. Later, I had no choice but to change the color. And then he went back to sleeping on the bed. I stiffened for a moment and asked as if torturing myself. "Really? Then would he sleep on the floor?" Alva sneered, glanced sideways at Bradley, and said, "He wouldn't dare. Now he even wears pink underwear." A trace of embarrassment flashed across Bradley's face. He gently patted her head, trying to stop her. "What's wrong with sleeping on a pink bedsheet? If your fiancé sleeps on the floor because of this, it only proves that he doesn't love you enough. You've wasted so many years looking for him. What a scumbag." After a long silence, I agreed with her words. "You're right. He might really not love me enough." After saying this, I clearly felt that Bradley's gaze lingered on me for a moment. He said in a cold tone, "Since that's the case, Miss Jiang should be sensible and withdraw. It would also avoid disturbing other people's lives. If possible, it would be best to disappear from his sight forever. Self-pity only makes others feel more disgusted. Bradley's words were explicit and unpleasant. Self-pity. It turned out that I had been feeling sorry for myself all this time. My eyes immediately turned red, and my voice trembled. You know him so well. Are you the same kind of person as him? You like to disappear, like to make others wait, and then drain their hope away, without even an apology. At the end of the day, you still say that others are self-pitying. I just want an explanation. Can my 5 years just be casually forgotten? Bradley frowned and got angry when he heard this. No one asked you to wait. Love and hate are all voluntary. Since you chose to wait, shouldn't you bear the consequences alone? Do you think that just because you waited for 5 years, he should be grateful to you and then marry you? His words were heartless and decisive. I stood there stunned, and the expectations and hopes I had once had in my heart instantly collapsed. Tears welled up in my eyes. Bradley's words were like a sharp knife, stabbing me again and again. He was right. Love and hate were all voluntary. No one forced me, and no one asked me to wait. So, I should bear the consequences of today alone. The once unbreakable relationship had now become illusory. Alva sensed that something was wrong and quickly stepped in to smooth things over. She pulled Bradley into the room. Her warning voice reached my ears. Neither too loud nor too soft. Are you asking for a beating? You know Christina is in a bad mood. But you still speak so harshly. Stop provoking her. Do you hear me? Bradley sneered, and his words were full of mockery. It's just an act. I was stunned and didn't speak for a long time. I stood there alone for a long while. The wound on my forehead was still aching, as if it were mocking my wishful thinking. Since that last quarrel, I rarely saw Bradley. Maybe he was deliberately avoiding me. We had lived under the same roof for half a month, and the number of times we met was few and far between. I became even more silent and spent most of my time alone in my room. Alva often stayed with me. She cooked me different kinds of food every day and coaxed me to take my medicine. I selfishly hoped that she wouldn't be so nice to me. Her kindness to me made me not even dare to have the thought of snatching Bradley back. It made me feel like I was the mistress secretly coveting someone else's husband. But how could I be willing? I was jealous of Bradley smiling at her and being nice to her. I even wanted to blind myself. I had also meanly thought that it would be better if Bradley had died outside, so that I could still deceive myself. I started staying in the living room for a long time so that when Bradley came back, I could take a look at him. But as if he had sensed it, he didn't show up for several days. I couldn't help asking Alva, "Where is he?" She was curled up on the sofa replying to messages, smiling sweetly. He hasn't been back to China for the past 3 years. There are a lot of things in the company, so he won't be coming over much recently. I was taken aback and asked in disbelief. Bradley came back 3 years ago. Why didn't I know about it? Yeah, he came back to discuss our wedding. I opened my mouth, and my eyes were filled with deadness. All that was in my numb mind was the sentence. He came back. He came back. I felt cold all over. I wanted to shout loudly, but when I opened my mouth, only a hoarse gasp came out. Alva's words were like a slap in the face. The next second, she jumped up in excitement. Christina, hurry up. Change your clothes. Let's go to Ueji right now. My husband asked me to take you there to meet someone. I just saw the photo, and he's so handsome. Then she pulled me back to the room and changed my clothes and put on a light makeup for me as quickly as possible. I let her do as she pleased because I wanted to see Bradley. When we got there, Alva took the lead in sitting next to Bradley and then winked at me, hinting that I should be bolder. I didn't say anything and silently found a seat to sit down. From this angle, I could see every move Bradley made. I watched as his thin lips curled slightly under Alva's teasing. In the dim light, Bradley's slender fingers casually played with the small of her back. Alva let out a soft cry and then started biting him. Bradley directly pinned her hands and kissed her fiercely. They kissed passionately, and I quickly turned my head away, too afraid to look any further. My hands hidden under my body clenched quietly. I lowered my head, and my voice could no longer be suppressed. Tears burst out instantly. It was as if the last line of defense in my heart had also collapsed. In this relationship, it was Bradley who left abruptly, but it was me who was trapped in this emotional prison. I suddenly felt a trace of relief. Fortunately, the lights in the room were dim, and no one would see my embarrassment. I turned my head to look elsewhere, but unexpectedly, I met a pair of eyes filled with a smile. Cecil's lips curled into a smile, and his tone was a bit casually lazy. "Hello, neighbor who played games in the bathtub." My eyelid twitched suddenly. It was him who broke into my room and sent me to the hospital 3 years ago, and then he stayed by my side in the hospital for a week. But every time he talked to me, his words were always laced with sarcasm, so my intention to thank him cooled down a bit. After that, even if we met in the elevator, we didn't talk to each other. Cecil continued, "TSK. We've been neighbors for more than 4 years, and now you're pretending not to know me." I frowned slightly. "No, thank you for what happened last time." The corners of his mouth curved into an arc, and he raised his eyebrows slightly, imitating me and speaking in a low voice. "Oh, you really have a bad memory. You're only remembering to thank me now for something that happened 3 years ago. Let me calculate how much the interest is. Tell me, how do you plan to thank me?" Cecil moved closer to me and sat down. His thigh wrapped in the suit pants pressed tightly against my skirt, and I could clearly feel his body temperature. His voice was seductive. "Otherwise, you can cry in my arms, and I'll collect some interest first." My eyelashes trembled, and I didn't want to pay attention to him. I looked up at Bradley's position and found that he was also looking at me. There was a trace of hardly noticeable mockery in his dark eyes. I lowered my head and smiled bitterly. Was this what he wanted? To get rid of me? So he chose to push me towards someone else. I laughed at my own stupidity. Why did I still have any expectations? The answer was obvious. What was I still hoping for? This absurd blind date banquet finally ended my 5-year obsession. After the drinking party ended, Bradley threw a room card for the penthouse at me. The corners of his lips curled slightly, revealing a contemptuous smile. "You've been lonely for so long. Have a good time tonight and release your pent-up emotions. Mr. Cecil is in good physical condition. He will definitely be able to satisfy you." He lowered his head and leaned closer to me, his voice dropping a lot. "However, can he find your sensitive spots?" I stared at him, looking straight into his eyes for a long time. "Bradley, I admit defeat. If this is what you want, then I'll grant your wish." I took the room card, turned around, and went up to the penthouse. Entering Cecil's room, he was half lying on the bed and looked at me sideways. "Is he the person you've been looking for 5 years?" I was a bit surprised, but then again, I wasn't really that surprised. I had been searching for Bradley for 5 years, and everyone in the whole circle knew about it. It wasn't strange that it had reached Cecil's ears. "Yeah." Cecil crushed out his cigarette irritably. "So you're in this sorry state because of him?" I frowned. "What's wrong with the way I look? You look so gloomy. People who don't know might think your husband is dead." Rarely did I agree with him. "Yeah, he's been dead for a long time." Cecil smiled faintly and casually lifted his eyelids. There was a rare hint of seriousness in his lazy eyes. "Christina, I've never been a gentleman. You can rely on me, or you can use me as your last hope. But once you enter this room, you should know what it means." The meaning behind his words was obvious. I nodded and took the initiative to embrace his body, reaching the peak of pleasure with him. I had been suppressing my emotions for far too long. When I saw him at the wedding, when I heard that Alva had taken him away for 5 years, and when I found out that he had come back 3 years ago but let me sink into despair day by day, I had already gone crazy. I completely indulged myself and fooled around with Cecil in the hotel for 3 days and 3 nights. I also asked myself whether I still loved him and missed him. The answer was, I still loved him, but I didn't miss him anymore. On the 4th day, Cecil and I got dressed and went home separately. When Alva saw me come back, she excitedly surrounded me and asked me how things had gone. Cecil had a lot of tricks. In these 3 days, he had tried all kinds of positions with me. I also tried my best to cooperate with him, and my body was covered with large patches of red marks and bruises. Alva's eyes widened. Damn, I knew he was good at it, but I didn't expect he was this good. Is there any part of your body that's still unmarked? I didn't say anything. I just felt a gaze filled with intense coldness roaming over my body. I sneered in my heart, met his sharp eyes, and curled my lips. I said to Alva, "Thank your husband for me. Thank him for making me completely give up on my feelings for him." After saying that, I went straight back to my room. As I passed the living room, Bradley suddenly stood up. A flash of jealous fire appeared in his deep and dark eyes. His face was also terribly gloomy, and he said coldly, "You don't need her to thank me. I'm standing right in front of you. You can thank me in person." I turned around to face him directly and said calmly, "Thank you." I didn't want to entangle with him any longer, so I turned to leave. But Bradley took a step forward and grabbed my arm. I twisted my wrist, but he held it tightly. I couldn't break free. I frowned and used my eyes to signal to him that Alva was still there. "Don't go too far." But he seemed not to notice and took another step closer to me. He bent down and leaned close to my ear. "Are you thanking me for finding someone to relieve your itch? It seems you drained him pretty well. You must have endured a lot of hardship these 5 years. Right. If he can't satisfy you anymore, you can come to me. Don't worry. I can use my hands. Because I think you're dirty." In an instant, I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cave, and my heart sank suddenly. Bradley didn't leave me any dignity at all. The words he said made me feel extremely ashamed. It was him who didn't want me, and it was also him who pushed me towards Cecil. Why could he always be so righteous as if I had betrayed him? I couldn't bear it any longer. I forcefully broke free from his hand, turned around, and slapped him in the face. Out of consideration for Alva, I deliberately lowered my voice. "Bradley, you humiliate me again and again like this, just because you know I can't let go of you. Right, but now, it's over. I'm setting myself free." When Alva saw that I had hit Bradley, she rushed forward and stood between us. Her tone became a bit stern. "Christina, why did you hit my husband?" Looking at Alva like this, I felt deeply powerless. I turned around and went back to my room, but I could still vaguely hear her questioning voice. "I told you not to provoke her. She's been a bit crazy recently. What did you say to her? And you were so close to her." Bradley didn't answer for a long time. He just stared fixedly at my retreating back without blinking. Because I had hit Bradley, Alva didn't want to talk to me for several days. My feelings for her were complicated. She was my best friend. On countless dark nights when I wanted to end this kind of life, it was her who comforted me all night long. Because she was worried that I would do something stupid, she would also find someone to keep an eye on me. She didn't seem to have done anything sorry to me, but in fact, she had hurt me the most deeply. My 5-year life in hell, my despair and helplessness, it was all because of her. Because she took a fancy to Bradley. She took him away from me for a whole 5 years. Even though she knew he had a fiancé, she still intervened in our relationship. So, in the end, who exactly had intruded into whose world? I'm not a magnanimous person. I can't wish her well. I also didn't want to be a third wheel for them anymore. So when Alva made sarcastic remarks to me again because I had hit Bradley, I said straightforwardly, "You two should move out." Alva was taken aback and started cursing. "Just because I said a few words to you, you want to kick me out? Have I been taking care of you for nothing these past few days? It was your fault for hitting my husband, and I didn't hold it against you. And now you're pushing your luck. Christina, are you still going to be a crazy bitch? You deserve to have depression, and you deserve to have your fiancé leave you. Damn it. If he were still with you, he couldn't stand your attitude either." I didn't say anything and let her vent her anger on me. It was better for her to scold me. This way, the last trace of my apology to her completely disappeared. After she finished scolding, I said softly, "Alva, let's not see each other again in the future. You two should move out today." After saying that, I ignored her and went straight out and knocked on the door next door. It was ridiculous to say that in these 5 years, I had isolated myself so much that I didn't have any friends left because they all thought I was crazy. Except for Alva. No one paid any attention to me. I knocked on the door. I had thought I would see Cecil, but it was a woman wearing a camisole nightgown who opened the door. She looked as if she hadn't woken up yet and asked me in a hoarse voice who I was. I was stunned for 2 seconds, but I still asked, "Where's Cecil?" She pointed inside the room. "He's sleeping. Do you want to come in?" I felt a bit choked up. I knew Cecil wasn't short of women, but having another woman while being with me was something I couldn't stand. It made me feel disgusted. "No, thanks." I quickly went downstairs. I realized that I seemed to have nowhere to go. During the 5 years I was looking for Bradley, my parents had persuaded me to give up. I didn't listen, and they didn't bother to care about me anymore. And the only home I had, there were 2 people in it that I didn't want to see. My phone kept ringing. I took a look and most of the calls were from Alva. There was also a call from Cecil, but I didn't want to answer it. I opened my phone, and Alva had sent me several 60-second voice messages. She knew I wouldn't listen to them, so she sent a text message as the last sentence. "You scared my baby. Come back and apologize to me, and I might reluctantly forgive you." She had given me an opportunity to smooth things over, but I didn't want to take it. After a moment, I calmly typed 2 words. Move out. Should I congratulate them? I couldn't do it, even if it were another 5 years, 10 years, or until I died. I couldn't forgive them, let alone wish their child well. If I could forgive everything, then my 5 years would become a complete joke. I didn't go back until 3 o'clock in the morning, and Alva still hadn't moved out. After washing up and lying on the bed, Cecil's call came through. I hesitated for a second, but I still answered it. "Come out," I said calmly. "It's very late. Let's talk about it tomorrow." Since he had another woman, there was no need to continue whatever we had. Cecil clicked his tongue. "Why didn't you wait until next time when you needed me? You ungrateful little thing. Do you want to run away after having a good time?" I was at a loss for words. After thinking for a while, I put on my nightgown and went out. Cecil was leaning against the wall, with a cigarette between his well-defined fingers. When he saw me come out, he threw away the cigarette and directly pulled me into the stairwell. He pressed me against the wall, lifted my nightgown up to my waist, and showered my back with dense kisses. Cecil's breathing gradually became heavier. Just as he was about to go further, I held down his hand. "Cecil, if you have another woman, don't touch me. It makes me uncomfortable." He didn't stop his actions and mumbled a reply while kissing me. "Who do I have?" I pursed my lips, not sure if I should tell him what I had seen today. If I didn't tell him, he wouldn't stop. But if I did, I felt I was being overly sensitive. I wasn't really anything to him, so why should I care about who his other woman was? I remained silent for a long time. Cecil directly turned me around to face him. His tone was a bit teasing. "Did you get jealous when you saw someone in my house today?" I was taken aback. So he knew. Then I shook my head. "I'm not jealous. I just don't like sharing a toy with others." His eyes narrowed slightly. After a moment, he let out a low laugh. "This toy is yours. No one else will touch it except you." My face turned red. Before I could say anything, he picked me up and carried me towards the room. I didn't leave Cecil's house until just before dawn, but then I saw Bradley sitting on the sofa. He hadn't turned on the lights, and the living room was pitch black. I could barely make out his shadow in the moonlight. I was a bit surprised, but I didn't say anything. Bradley crushed out his cigarette. It was too dark in the room, and I could hardly see his expression, but I could still feel that his eyes were like 2 sharp knives, as if they were going to bore a hole through me. In the silent air, I could faintly hear the sound of his knuckles cracking from excessive force. He suddenly stood up, walked towards me, and stopped right in front of me. His voice was harsh, as if he was brewing an impending storm. "Did you do it again, Christina? Do you really need a man that badly?" I felt as if I had heard a ridiculous joke. When he gave me the room card, didn't he know what would happen? I looked up at him. The close distance allowed me to see the terrifying madness in his eyes. After a long while, I slowly opened my mouth. "Bradley, did you come back 3 years ago?" This question had been lingering in my mind for a long time. If I didn't ask it, I wouldn't be able to let it go. He evaded the question and said through gritted teeth, "I'm asking you if you did it with him again. Are you fucking itching to death? Would you die without a man? Do you understand? Even though I married Alva, it doesn't mean I don't love you anymore. If you want something, you can tell me, and I'll satisfy you. Why do you keep going to Cecil again and again?" As he spoke, he forcefully threw me onto the sofa, leaned over, and pressed himself on top of me. I widened my eyes. Before I could blurt out my words of accusation, he viciously sealed my lips with his. I reached out to push him away, but Bradley freed one hand and easily pinned my hands above my head. He kissed passionately, and I tightly shut my mouth to prevent him from having his way. He was crazy. Alva was sleeping in the room while pregnant. As long as she opened the door, she would see this erotic scene, and Bradley didn't seem to care at all. A moment of hesitation and struggle flashed through my mind. The pain that had been suppressed in my heart for so long actually gave me a fleeting sense of pleasure in wanting to take revenge. Wasn't it only fair that she should suffer the same pain I had endured? But the next second, I overturned the inner balance that was about to tilt. Alva couldn't become the next me. I managed to turn my head and was just about to speak when the lights in the living room suddenly came on. I turned to look, and Alva was standing quietly at the door of the bedroom. I didn't know how long she had been watching. The air fell into a deathly silence. Bradley stood up in silence, raised his hand to wipe his lips, and curled into a smile, as if he didn't care at all. "Why did you wake up?" Alva's gaze was as poisonous as if it had been quenched, landing on me and then turning to Bradley. She sneered, "I woke up at the wrong time and interrupted your little affair." "Right." Then she turned to look at me. "Bitch. Haven't I been good to you? How dare you steal my man? I was worried about you. Right after our wedding, I brought my husband to take care of you. This is how you repay me. I knew this day would come sooner or later, but I didn't expect it to happen like this." I had to admit that although I wasn't happy about it, I didn't feel much remorse either. I stood up, my gaze calm. "I've never stolen your man. It was you who stole mine." My denial made her even angrier. Alva stormed towards me and slapped me across the face. "Do you think I'm blind? If you hadn't seduced him, why would he force you? Your fiancé is dead. If you're so desperate for sex, go find a gigolo outside. You wander around outside in a nightgown in the middle of the night. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking?" She used all her strength in that slap, and my left cheek burned with pain. I licked the inside of my mouth, and the taste of blood spread in my mouth. I looked at her, raised my hand, and then put it down. Consider this slap as repayment for the help she gave me during those 5 years. I lifted my eyelids, looked at Bradley, and showed a trace of mockery. "Aren't you going to soothe your wife?" He glanced at me, then looked at Alva. His eyes were dark and hard to read, and he said softly, "Let's go home. I'll explain to you." Alva's face was pale. "What kind of explanation can make me forgive your double betrayal? You are the person I love the most, and she is my best friend. Did you think about today when you were having an affair behind my back?" I laughed softly and lowered my head. "Double betrayal. Wasn't I also double betrayed by you?" "Oh, no. It's not the same. I was deceived, kept in the dark, and played for a fool for 5 years without knowing anything." Hearing my words, Bradley frowned slightly, as if afraid that I would say something I shouldn't. He directly pulled Alva and left. The living room, which had been filled with a frosty atmosphere, instantly became extremely quiet. It wasn't my fault, and I had endured so much pain. But why was it always me who had to suffer? Since they left last time, I haven't contacted Alva again. I packed up her things and mailed them to her directly. I also didn't deliberately inquire about Bradley's news, and I had no idea how he would explain the matter between him and me. As for Cecil, I briefly told him what happened that night. He made me brush my teeth for 3 hours until my gums bled and my mouth was full of the taste of toothpaste. It wasn't until I couldn't taste my food that he stopped. I protested, but he kept his head down and said nothing. Just kept squeezing toothpaste for me. "Brush clean. I can't stand the smell of him on you. Not even a trace." I was helpless, but I still did as he said. I moved in with Cecil. On the day of the move, I saw Bradley downstairs. Since he left with Alva last week, I hadn't seen him. It was strange. I couldn't forget him for 5 years. But in just 1 week, I didn't think of him even once. I looked into his eyes, which were slightly red, as if filled with unwillingness and helplessness. Bradley's voice was hoarse. "I came back 3 years ago and also came to find you. But it was Cecil who answered your phone. Christina. At that moment, I hated you so much. I was only gone for 2 years, and you already had a new lover. So I left again. When I saw you at the wedding, I suddenly felt a sense of pleasure in wanting to take revenge. So, I married Alva." I lowered my eyes and said softly, "Do you want to know why Cecil answered my phone 3 years ago?" He stared at me, his throat feeling as if something was stuck in it, eagerly waiting for my answer. I looked at him and said word by word, "I suffered from depression and tried to commit suicide. Because I couldn't find you. I slit my wrists in the bathtub. I wanted to be with you. It was Cecil who sent me to the hospital, and I stayed in the hospital for 10 days. Bradley stared at me without blinking, his face showing an expression of disbelief, and his tall and upright body trembled for a moment. After a long while, he opened his mouth but couldn't speak due to the trembling. "Christina, would you be willing to wait for me again? Alva is pregnant, and she saved my life. I can't leave her at this time." After she gives birth to the baby, I will divorce her and make it up to you properly. Okay. I smiled and shook my head, refusing. Bradley, it's all in the past between us. I'm gradually getting over it. And I hope you will never appear in front of me again. Bradley, it's all too late. If you had just looked at me at the wedding and asked me how I was doing, I would have waited for you without hesitation. But now, it's no longer possible. Bradley left. And as I wished, he never showed up again. Cecil said that the feng shui of this house was not good and insisted on taking me to his private villa. I asked him why. At that time, he had just thrown all my medicine into the trash can. Upon hearing my question, he raised his eyebrows slightly, exuding an indescribable sense of being a rascal. It's too dark there and not suitable for you to thrive. Christina, when you're with me, you don't need to take these useless things. Looking at the faint smile on his lips, I pretended not to understand. What if I have an episode? Cecil curled his lips into a smile and teased. An episode of being crazy. I curved my eyebrows and eyes, and a warm feeling welled up in my heart. In his eyes, I was just a perfectly normal person. When Alva was 3 months pregnant, she contacted me again. After thinking about it, I decided to meet her. We hadn't seen each other for nearly 2 months, and she didn't seem to have changed much. She was still as overbearing as before. She looked at me with a hint of indifference in her eyes and spoke first. I know everything. Bradley is the fiancé you've been looking for 5 years. She was silent for a moment and then continued. If it were someone else, I wouldn't even apologize because it's their fault for not being able to keep their lover. I was just fighting for what I deserved. I don't think I did anything wrong. But it's you, Christina. I don't want to apologize to you. I stole your fiancé without knowing the truth. Although my actions were a bit unethical. But if I can't get your forgiveness, Bradley won't pay any attention to me. I slowly raised my eyelids, my gaze calm. What happens between you two has nothing to do with me. Alva clenched her palms and for the first time softened her voice. Christina, I'm sorry. I love him. And my child can't grow up without a father. Even though I know about your past, I still don't want to leave him. I saved his life. As long as I don't mention divorce, he will never leave me. For the sake of the help I gave you during those 5 years, can you forgive me? I didn't say anything and looked at her for a long time. In my impression, Alva was warm, cheerful, loyal, and dared to love and hate. She never asked others for favors. This was the first time that because of Bradley, she lowered her head. I once loved Bradley deeply and was obsessed with him for 5 years. I also hated Alva because of that. But now, she was just like me in the past. Bradley had also become her obsession. I gave her that house. I had decorated it in the style that Bradley liked. But I didn't need it anymore. Consider it a congratulatory gift for her child. Forgive. But his friends around him had all told me that he hadn't lost his memory and that he remembered everything. A year later, I married Cecil. On the day we got the marriage certificate, the weather was great. It was clearly a half-hour drive, but he drove for an hour and a half. Several times I couldn't help but want to scold him, but I held back. When we arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, the process that could have been completed in 10 minutes, he dragged it out for nearly half an hour. I couldn't stand it anymore and angrily scolded him. If you don't want to get the certificate, then don't. Cecil pursed his lips and was also unhappy. TSK. Who am I being so slow for? I wanted you to have a sense of experience, and now I'm getting scolded. I took a deep breath and let him do as he pleased. When we came out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I had a warm red marriage certificate in my hand. I was in a trance for a moment. The last time I came here, I received the news that Bradley had an accident. After 6 years, I was here again, and I had already married someone else. 2 years later, I gave birth to a daughter. Cecil adored her to no end. He looked at me for a long time and joked. I'm really into you. I smiled. Yeah, I'm into you too.